Namaskar. Welcome to this session of Straight Drive. I am Sudhanshu Mani. Friends, we have been hearing of corporatization of some state-owned organizations and assets in recent months. And one of the areas is the production units of Indian Railways called PUs, which are the factories in which Indian Railways manufactures mainly its rolling stock, the moving assets, locomotives and coaches, and some capital spares like wheels. We have seven major factories, seven PUs, three for coaches at Chennai, Raebareli, and Kapurthala, three for locomotives at Chittaranjan, Varanasi, and Patiala, and one at Bangalore, which manufactures train wheels. These involve some approximately 40,000 employees. Now, corporatization would be restructuring into a corporation, and once and if this is done, this would typically have a board of directors, within quotes, independent management. And unlike publicly traded companies, the government would be the sole owner of all the shares, would be the sole shareholder, unless the government decides to dilute its shares through disinvestment in future or privatize it by selling off these shares. The stated goal of corporatization, friends, is usually to allow the government to retain ownership of the organization, company in this case, while facilitating to operate it more efficiently, as government departments are often inefficient, inflexible, and they have their internal bureaucracy, stifling bureaucracy, with its maze of rules, regulations, checks and balances, basically meant for a ministry, an administration, an office, not for an enterprise. Well, so Indian Railway is not really a true enterprise, but has, as you all know, major social responsibilities. So this cannot be a simple business case of transforming these government-owned entities into corporations. So there are two sets of news for this government, friends. The first, as you know, this government has shown time and again it can take far-reaching decisions with a view to bringing paradigm changes. But there is a bad news as well. And the bad news is that the government is also prone to take such decisions without properly analyzing the consequences. I'll take half a minute more. In Merchant of Venice, Portia says, if to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor men's cottages, princesses' palaces. In this case of this government, it is the reverse. It seems to do pretty easily, but we are not very sure if it actually knows what is good to do. Well, Shakespeare apart, Romeo in Romeo and Juliet also says that what light through yonder window breaks. To tell you and analyze that this light which now breaks through the yonder window, that is the plan to corporatize railway production units, we have a panel. Please welcome Mr. Sarabjit Arjun Singh, a veteran railwayman with immense experience in field of railway production and procurement of capital goods for these PUs. Mr. Sushil Luthra, also an ex-railwayman, who also oversaw the business aspects of railway or railway-related services with a stint in rights and is now in private sector. And we have Mr. Swapnil Garg, also an ex-railwayman. Of course, he was not a railwayman for life. He left railways and joined IIM Indore after doing his management, and he's now a faculty at IIM Indore. I'll start with you, Mr. Singh, with a very, very simple question. Is there a need to corporatize PUs? And if there is, then the ideal roadmap to undertake this complicated exercise.
Thank you, Sudhanshu, for calling me to this What's Straight Drive episode, and I had to talk about corporatization of the production units. And of course, like you said, if you knew what to do, you could do it quite easily. And if I may say, what is the light shining across the window?
Yes.
Well, you know, I think the question we should be really asking is not that we want to corporatize and not corporatize the production units, is do we want to create a global level rolling stock industry? Because if we do want to create a global level rolling stock industry, then the way to go about doing it and what should be done to the production units would perhaps follow a different path than the straight path which we are thinking, that if we get it out of the bureaucratic system of working and make it into a corporate unit, it will start working efficiently. I don't think that's going to happen. There are various reasons for it. Because as George Stiglitz, actually the Nobel Prize winner in economics, has put it down, that, and I read it out because I've written it, and it says, it says that in globalization and its discontents, it's liberalizing a country's trade sufficient to trade makes sense when its industries have matured sufficiently to reach a competitive level, but not before. Similarly, privatizing government-owned firms makes sense when adequate regulatory systems and governance laws are in place, but not before. Therefore, if we do want to corporatize and we want them to become world-class level, we have to put in a proper sequencing and we have to protect them for some time so that they are globally able to globally compete. It says, more specifically, he argues that ignoring proper sequencing has disastrous consequences for countries opening up their economies to the world. Hence, spinning off production units needs sequencing, the changes for fashioning the rolling stock industry into a global level hub. If you want to create a global level hub, we have all the components with us here already built in with great capital investment and sacrifice by the country. Now, if we just take a quick, I try to make it as short of what we have. We have 3 coach building plants, ICF, RCF, and MCF. We have 2 locomotive plants, DLW and CLW. We have a quasi-production unit in the form of DCW Patiala. We have component builders like wheel and axle plant, Bela, rail coach, rail spring Karkhana. So these all are an industry in itself, along with the 40 railway workshops that we have. A huge resource which, along with RDSO and its testing and standardization facilities, can be put together into a very strong global level industry, provided we can get our act together, get our policies together. It's not so much capital investment that we need. It's getting our act together, put these pieces to work harmoniously in totality. But what are we doing? We are putting in 2 more locomotive factories in Bihar, along with 2 private companies. And then when we're going to say that people can work private trains, we're asking them to build their own maintenance facilities. I don't think this is very appropriate use of capital or the existing resources that we already have. So the question is, how do we go about creating a rolling stock industry in this country, and what to do to the production units will therefore automatically follow. Clearly, they have to be made able to compete globally, they have to have a quality which can compete globally. But how do we go about doing that? And as I said, we have to sequence it. Actually, what we need to do is to really create a department for creation of a rolling stock industry in this country within the Ministry of Railways, specifically tasked with doing that. In the meantime, of course, we manage the production units. Now, we shouldn't take all the production units because they are different businesses with their own economic necessities. Say, let's look at the coach building plants, for example. They have a similar business requirement or economic requirement and a business plan, and we should basically start with them. And we should create a holding company for these three units and ask them to go further. Now, what will the department do? Department will act on behalf of the Ministry of Railways. Now, what does the department's mandate has to be? And I wrote it down in one of my papers, and it should be something like this, and I'll read it out. Ministry of Railways will have to underpin the competitiveness of the rolling stock industry through appropriate political, legal, and macroeconomic reform. Unless you do that just by privatizing or corporatizing production units and throwing them, nothing is going to be achieved. We have to have an overarching policy like we had at the time of independence when these production units were set up. At that time, it was very, very clear that we have to have self-sufficiency in capital equipment manufacturing. And it was also clear that the private sector would not have the capital to do so, and therefore the government had to do it. And we had nothing at that time. And production units were therefore set up with the overarching ability of self-sufficiency and import substitution. And import substitution created a vendor base. And that vendor base, what we have done, absorbing technologies which we have absorbed, has now given us a capability to be able to do a Train 18. Train 18 shows we have up to about ability to produce trains up to about 200 kilometers. We have to go above that. And if we have to go above that, we have to put money into research. And
I get your sense, you seem to be saying that we should be leveraging the expertise and the assets we have instead of only trying to restructure, and that should be the path towards global leadership. But you did say about creation of a holding company, which would also be kind of a corporate structure in a way. I'll come to you, Mr. Luthra. Surely we have not too many, but some examples in the country where similar corporatization has been achieved with success or with failure, so we can learn from that, good or bad, in whatever way. So, and where do you stand on this? These two aspects, if you can.
Sure. Thank you, Sudhanshu. Mr. Sarabjit Singh has very correctly started the subject at the correct level, that the government needs to be clear of the objectives of corporatization, if at all. And without that clarity and without the correct staging and steps of this exercise, the exercise will either be meaningless or probably fail. Now, this country has seen a few examples of corporatization of ministry-held assets. The most publicly known are the MTNL and the BSNL. These were managed, the telephone connections to the public were managed by the Department of Telecommunication. And first MTNL and then BSNL were created as corporates so as to handle the business of customer interface better. And they did a very good job. And but as logically happened, once the sector opened up, it could not stand up to the private sector, and both of them have now today collapsed. But in their time, MTNL was set up in 1986, and it almost 2 decades of human service MTNL did for the country as corporates, which the department could not have done. But much more than this is a very recent example of the corporatization of the SPMCIL, which is which becomes Security Printing Minting Corporation of India Limited. This is not very well known. This was corporatized in 2006. And all the countries' 7 or 8 mints and security presses where the currency notes and coins, etc., are printed and made. These were corporate. These were under the Ministry of Finance. They were independent units, but controlled by the Ministry of Finance, by a department of the Ministry of Finance. And in 2006, they were corporatized, and today they are working as a proper corporation under full government control. I was looking through their last annual report. The labor productivity has turnover per employee has gone up by about 3.5 times in the last 10 years. The data presented was from 2008 to 2018. So a 3 times rise in the labor productivity turnover per employee has happened. Their turnover has doubled. This corporatization has a very good parallel with what we are talking of today, because like the railways, these presses and mints, they had just a single customer, that is Government of India. Just like the railway PUs will have a single customer, mainly, it may have other customers also. But the arm's length relationship between the government, the buyer, and this entity, this corporate entity, the example is very well set by this SPMCIL. The ordnance factories are also presently undergoing this exercise of corporatization. And I'm sure they will also throw up the ideas which railway PUs can follow. How to go about it, as Mr. Singh said, the correct sequencing is very, very important. Taking all the stakeholders into confidence at the right time is very important, because each one of them have a chance of sabotaging the whole exercise. Because there is no interest in the present IR management as such to corporatize it. There is no interest in the labor unions or the labor to corporatize it, unless they are educated, they are informed of the purpose behind this exercise, taken into confidence, their issues, their concerns addressed, and then move forward. Unfortunately, so far, it's still a hush-hush exercise. Every time this subject comes up, it is dealt by some outside consultants, rather than making the railway managers a party to this exercise, making them fully involved in this exercise. If they have doubts, to assuage those doubts. That is a win-win way of moving forward. But unfortunately, that is not happening so far. We have all been part of railway management. I talked to a lot of railway managers. The first and foremost objection, I'm talking about the managers, not the labor and the unions. The senior managers, the middle managers, the biggest issue they have is, this is not a panacea for anything. After, the control will remain with the ministry. People from the ministry will pull the strings. There is no independence. See how so-and-so public sector works. Look what has happened to BHEL. Look what is happening there. So this is the biggest objection people have, that this is not a real panacea for everything, that you will corporatize and all its problems will be over and you will become a global industry.
Yeah.
But they have to be spoken to and explained that this is a necessary first step only. Unless you have crossed this step, you will not be able to move to the next step. Whenever you corporatize a setup, it is with a future eye to privatization, to disinvestment, but that process sometimes can take 25 to 30 years. For example, HAL. HAL is also similarly placed. It produces equipment and goods only for the Indian Air Force or its allied for the defense forces. This company was set up in 1948, and only in 2019, for the first time, it has been listed in the stock market. It still remains in government control, is doing well, it's serving its purpose, but is able to work to the objective. It has taken in so many different kinds of technologies from Russia, from America, from France, and it has supported our defense forces so very well. If it was a government department, it would also have supported like the ordnance factories have supported, but not in the efficient way that HAL has done. So this is what I can say, Sudhanshu.
Very good. Yeah. So you brought in some new knowledge to us on the subject, especially about the mints. I did not know about that. So what your sense I can get is that it's a good step. So good step to move forward, but taking all the stakeholders along with you is very, very important for success. And a clear roadmap for next 10, 15, 20 years should be laid out instead of a rash decision to maybe even move ahead with all units or one unit and so on. I'll come to you, Mr. Garg. So where do you first of all stand on this issue? And what would be your recipe, particularly with the standpoint of gainful improvement of the functioning of these factories, or we would simply be fixing something that at this point is not really broken?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. You people are stalwarts and very senior to me, and I think I have the benefit of the youngest one in the group, so I can be a little rash and brash. So starting with your question,
maybe not as rash as the government.
Probably. Let's see what I have to say. And so first, I'll start from the reverse. You were talking about what ain't broken. So I have a slightly different way of looking at it. You can look at a glass half full, or you can look at a glass half empty. It's a matter of perspective. But there is no doubt, as Mr. Singh was also saying, that we need a glass which needs more water. So we need to fill up the glass. So this debate about whether it is broken or not broken has to be kept to the side. We have to think about filling up this glass. The second thing, which connects a little bit to what Mr. Luthra was talking about, that we have to understand what corporatization is. We are not talking about privatization here. I happen to be in Indore, the Indore Municipal Corporation. That is the reason why Indore is the fourth in running for the Swachh city in the country. But there are successful models for corporatization, and there is not one model of corporatization. Having worked in the railways, look at these three ideas. By corporatization, we are trying to give greater financial transparency. Anyone in the railways has always felt we want this. You talk about reduced political interference. We have always been aspiring for that. Strengthen managerial accountability. These are the things that we within the railways have always been aspiring for, and corporatization, as I see it, is a way and means to move towards that, which is quite in line with what Mr. Luthra was saying. So having identified with you people, now I'd like to take a slightly different view on what we are talking about here. So as Mr. Luthra was saying, there are multiple examples of success. And Mr. Singh was saying that we need a big, large roadmap to which we need to move to. But honestly, if you look around, we don't really have our own railway success story of corporatization. How do we get one unless we don't try? And that is where I want to talk about it. As my understanding is that we have a problem within the railways of administrative control and engineering determinism. The administrator within the railway manager wants to have a control all the time. On the other hand, the engineer within the railway manager wants to ensure that there is a deterministic way of doing things. And I think that is where the problem of this thing starts. Mr. S. Singh is not wrong in saying that we need to have a grand plan to which we need to work to. Fine. But didn't we have 30, 40 last years just to bake up those grand plans? And we have not really ended up anywhere. We don't still have a grand plan. So my key part is there is no ideal way of corporatization. We have to discover our own way of corporatization. We have to take these small little steps, and probably at your age, probably you don't want to fail. But what I am looking at is until we don't take these steps, and there have to be a certain number of failures. Let's take these failures in our stride. If we don't have the trust in the railway management that they will take the right steps, then it's fine. But if we see the quality of railway people around and what they are going to deliver, so honestly, corporatization is not going to be a solution for everything. As Mr. Luthra was saying, that the railway managers just talk about. Probably, with all compliments to Mr. Mani, the best corporatization effect would not be similar to what Mr. Mani did at ICF. Probably we can't even match that. So yes, there would be large number of variations when we talk about corporatizations. But it is not going to be the panacea for everything. But we have got to experiment out and find out where do we fit in? What is it that we need? And for that, we should be ready for 50% failures. I would even say 80% failures. Let's go ahead and fail and take a call on that, and let's see how the world takes us forward. That's what I have to say, sir.
Very nice. Very nicely spoken, Swapnil, except one caveat. Your age and my age doesn't get into it. We are all very... Okay, gentlemen. I'll give you 1 minute each for a brief, succinct closing statement. Can I begin with you, Mr. Singh?
I've heard the other panelists and I've heard you, and I think we have to corporatize. There is no doubt about it. But I said we have to look at sequencing. And one of the things which comes to my mind is when you corporatize, because there's a single market, and like the Chinese did, we should give preferred access to the corporate entity with the ability to enter into linkages with developed firms or firms, international firms, with the proviso that they would be able to export a certain amount of their product every year, and that percentage must increase. And by about 5 years, the protection will go, and by then they should be able to stand up. Maybe another 5 years, if they at a lesser level, if they still aren't able to do. But in 10 years, we should be able to be globally competitive. That's what I feel.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Luthra.
Totally agree with what Swapnil said and what Mr. Singh has just concluded. I have a question rather than a further statement. My question is, does corporatization of PUs really have any meaning without also thinking of corporatization of Indian Railways as a whole? Because it has to fit into that part. If we have a long-term roadmap, that roadmap should also include a corporatized Indian Railways. Because we are just an outlier. Today, very few, even Bangladesh is not a government department. The Bangladesh Railways is also not a government department. Maybe Pakistan and we are the only major railway systems left in the world who are not corporatized. So, very good first step would be to corporatize the PUs, but the roadmap should also include eventual corporatization of Indian Railways. I would like to end my views like this.
Yeah. Swapnil.
Thank you.
Sir, you said one sentence, and my sentence is I borrow it from McKinsey.
The
clause for their growth was let 1,000 flowers bloom. So let 1,000 flowers bloom, and then let's see what is there. And at the other hand, disagreeing with most of you, let there be a faster pace of doing these things.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nicely put. So, gentlemen, as we have determined, the light that comes through the window yonder is not a unitary beam, it's a rainbow. And there's hardly a black and white. There are shades and shades of gray, and we must keep talking about it, analyzing it. Thank you very much for joining this session of Straight Drive today. Mr. Singh, Mr. Luthra, Mr. Garg. Hope we'll have a discussion on privatization of railways per se and corporatization of PUs once again soon. Thank you very much. And viewer, we all, my countrymen, railwaymen or non-railwaymen, we all love Indian Railways. We want the best for it. And that's why we debate these issues. We'll be back soon on Straight Drive with another issue connected with Indian Railways. Till then, please permit me to leave. We will be here again next Thursday with another issue, burning issue on Straight Drive. Thank you very much. Namaskar.